Say the wrong thing, Torque.
Captain, what is happening?
Stand by for evasive.
The more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain.
I do not deserve to live.
Fine, I'll kill you later.
Jim. Your name is Jim.
Yes.
You heard it up top. We are once more boldly going where no woman or man has gone before, taking another trek through the stars, you might say, as we continue our 10-year mission. I'm not sure how long we're going to end up doing these.
Probably 10
watching
years.
every Star Trek film here on Normies Like Us, with the third film. That's right, it's Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, with your hosts, Tall Colin. I'm that security guard.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with a good helmet.
Don't call me tiny.
I'll be Dr. Mike Coy. Remember.
Oh man, I was gonna be Dr. Jacob Bones McEble.
Well, you could be Jock, and you're like in my brain.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it makes sense. You're both Bones because, as we all remember, in last time we talked about Star Trek, there was a radiation leak, and our co-host Joe had to go down and seal that up. Beforehand, though, he touched both of your foreheads, and he said the words, remember.
That's right. And
That's right.
I will and shall always be your co-host. And that's what he said. Yeah, it's very touching.
Yes, of all the souls I have known, his was the most human.
Hosty.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way to artistically have all of this appear in a tiny box to start the film, this little flashback that we're discussing, as it gets bigger and bigger and bigger?
Only if the opening VO is extremely weird and distorted. Then we can make it happen. Yeah. Podcast, The Final Frontier. We shall see. But the third one of these.
That's right.
After the Wrath of Khan. That's right. You know, as we know, Wrath of Khan,
right.
we would lose Spock in a tragic moment. And then someone decided, fuck that. We're bringing him back.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, Mike. Leonard Nimoy basically only came back to do Wrath of Khan because they promised they would kill him off in a dramatic death scene. Kind of like, Harrison Ford wanted to do for Han Solo. Because he wasn't really he didn't enjoy, filming the motion picture. But then while they were filming Wrath of Khan, he enjoyed it so much. He was like, you know what? Maybe I should, be in more of these. And actually, let me direct the next one, which is why they changed the ending to make it more open ending, to bring him back, which director Nicholas Meyer of the Wrath of Khan was not super happy with, because he felt, Spock should remain dead, and it kind of undercut the emotion of the end of that movie.
Right. Huh. Oh, so like Remember and stuff, that's like a reshoot, right? When we get that moment?
Kind of they weren't originally going to do that, but as they were filming, they were like, you know what, let's film this just in case and keep it more open-ended so we can bring back Spock, our most popular character.
It's interesting that Leonard Nimoy and I are on the same journey, where we're both like doing Star Trek stuff and like, is Star Trek kind of good? And we're like, yeah, it is. It's like a lot of fun and it's great. He's like, you know what? It is. That's cool.
Maybe I'll be more involved. I know there was that memoir, like I Am Not Spock, right? So like, there was a little bit of that was out in the
totally.
ethos.
After the show was canceled, 1969, he was had to fight being typecast as Spock, as did William Shatner, as did the rest of the crew. They're all kind of typecast.
That Gorn's only been in one show. He can't even get work. He's so typecast. Right.
Shatner in the 70s really struggled to get work until these movies started coming out, and then you got T.J. Hooker. But Leonard Nimoy, he was like really wanted to move away from sci-fi. Yeah, sorry. And so he started doing like plays and stuff. So he's really out of it. So motion picture came around. He was very checked out during the filming of that. He's like, whatever, this could be a one-off thing. And he comes back, they had to convince him to come back for Wrath of Khan, and then he kind of falls in love with the role again.
Interesting, yeah. And again, that's like probably one of the, like he's the core of that story, because he is the most human, right? Like he's a big part of of Wrath of Khan. It's not just the ending. So I think fans have always liked him a lot. So, you know.
And of course, he's barely in this one, but he's directing behind the scenes, and then he's in basically just the very end.
His presence is felt throughout it, and I think we'll kind of get into that more.
Spock.
Yeah. There's not the first time we'll get a young Spock, but that's a story that will be told another time. That's a reference to Neverending Story, which opened the same weekend as this. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about a different Neverending Story, the story of Star Trek. Did you guys see these? I had only seen this one time in my life. This is my first rewatch, and that's where I'm coming into this before we dive in proper. Yeah. Jacob, how about you?
I had not seen this before we started doing this whole thing, but now, I mean...
You're a little far ahead now.
Since about
you
2
got
months
too excited.
ago, I couldn't just watch one a month. So I've now seen all 6 of the original series movies. And I just rewatched this one for a second time today. So I'm very, caught up on it, I guess.
Excellent. Well, Colin, how about you? This is new territory, undiscovered country. Wait, no, that's not this. That's another thing. All right. So we had a subspace transmission error. Colin, how about you, though? Have you seen this before? Where are you at kind of as the search for Spock as we go on this journey?
I've searched for Spock many times. I've seen this film a couple times before. I think it's kind of one that I skip over because the instant association I have is that is just the movie that follows the better movie. And that's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of good stuff in this. And I think the journey I'm going on is the same journey Jacob's had, which is every time I watch one of these movies, I go, maybe this one's my favorite. So I'm excited to talk about it today.
Well, this one,
wow, okay.
It's the first and I think only really direct sequel to, it pretty much picks up right where Wrath of Khan leaves off. I guess Voyage Home is also a direct sequel to this, but it's kind of separate. Like basically they're just coming back from the end of this movie.
We're in
Earth,
a series right now.
Yeah, this is like a 3-movie trilogy within the 6 Star Trek, right? Wrath of Khan, Search for Spock, The Voyage Home, all kind of connect together. And the popular maxim about Star Trek is that the odd-numbered films are bad and the even-numbered films are good.
Boo.
I would say I mostly agree with that, but this one I think is good. It's my 4th favorite out of the 6. So I like 4 of these movies, and 2 of them I think are bad, which is 1 and 5, which we'll get to. But I think this one's the one that
it's
breaks
below
the rule.
50% on the total of 6, but it's maybe
worst
the
good
best.
movie.
Yeah, it's the best.
Or it's the
It
best
is the
bad
worst
movie.
good.
Odd numbered. It's the best odd numbered Star Trek, potentially. Well,
Yes.
let's explore that idea and potentially the genesis of this movie itself as we talk the search for Spock right after this on Normies Like Us.
We're back. We're trekking. We're talking Star Trek now. Mike, Forbidden Planet you just mentioned. Genesis.
Yes.
Because, of course, like we just said, this is a sequel to the film we talked about before. So if you didn't listen to our Wrath of Khan episode, maybe you'll be a little behind on this because like Jacob set up, this is sort of a trilogy we're going through. But obviously a lot of the events follow through here. Let's talk a little bit about what the state of Trek is, though. We did a little up top with where Leonard Nimoy was. But basically, Trek is back. People are super excited by Star Trek. And we're in this weird bubble of sequels don't exactly exist yet in the movie world. There just really aren't a lot of them. Right? Something like this that was on television, super easy to sequelize because they've done it. You just kind of do another episode, right?
Yep.
But they very much instead went with, let's continue what happened in that last one. Let's get everybody back. And of course, this is at the time where there's no Kevin Feige going hey, Chris Hemsworth, you signed 9 pictures. No. Every time they make a Star Trek movie at this point in time, they're like, oh my God, do you guys want to make another Star Trek movie? And everybody's kind of like, whoa, what a crazy idea.
And it's weird to think about because, when I think about Star Trek, I think of it as a TV show first, right? And it was a TV show, but it wasn't super popular when it was on. Obviously, it got canceled, became a cult kind of status, in reruns and syndication. And then obviously they brought it back with movies. And the movies were obviously very much a cash in on the Star Wars popularity. They're like, let's get something into production. That turned out to be the motion picture. Almost killed the franchise off again. Then they have Wrath of Khan. Now it's like, all right, we can make, however many of these people want to see these Star Trek movies. Yeah. So this is kind of their making it into more of a franchise now with a direct sequel to Wrath of Khan.
Yes. Now, fandom-wise, Paramount Pictures is receiving death threats in the mail daily. Bring back Spock.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's the most popular character. Kirk, obviously, William Shatner was very jealous of Nimoy a lot of the times because he was, everyone's favorite character. But, he's a great character. We love Spock, right?
Right. Now we're searching for him. I know you mentioned at the top, Jacob, that kind of the creative choice to bring him back, the original director of Khan did not agree with that. And that kind of did open left the director's chair up for grabs, at which point Nimoy's like, I think I'd like to give that a shot,
Yeah, exactly. Nicholas Meyer was offered to direct this movie, but he turned it down because he's like, no, you fucked up my ending last time. I didn't like that.
I made the perfect Star Trek film.
Yeah.
Why would I come back to this? Now, obviously, he will at one point, and he will join forces with Leonard Nimoy, Jacob.
Yes.
But Leonard Nimoy had not directed before this. This is his first one. People love to bring up Three Men and a Baby, but I just got to ask you guys, have you ever seen another Leonard Nimoy directed movie?
I've seen Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home.
Yeah, just that one.
Count.
Yeah, but anything outside of Trek,
that,
I wouldn't know if I had.
No.
Yeah.
A lot of documentaries about just like weird stuff, like not in a derogatory way, I'm going to say this, but like he made a movie that's just about like fat women just like being like very sexy. Like he was kind of like a weird artsy artist guy. Jacob, you talked a lot about theater and all that stuff. I just love him, and I think you really can feel his hand in this film, oddly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was watching on YouTube the other day. I was doing some research for these films, and there's this interview that he did with, it was him, Shatner, Patrick Stewart, and Jonathan Frakes all together.
Oh my God.
Oh, wow.
This was like a panel hosted by Whoopi Goldberg, Guinan.
Wow.
And it was just, the two captains and the two, first officers. And it's kind of the first time they were ever all together. And this was in like 2013 or something. So it was just a few years before Nimoy died. And it's just awesome. Like they're just trading stories about filming on the different films and stuff. And it's just super fascinating. And Leonard Nimoy comes off as like such an interesting guy in that interview that I'm definitely interested to like check out more of his work, outside of Star Trek.
Yeah. And I think he does a good job here. Again, like, they made a lot of money with Wrath of Khan. It's the second one of these. So they have a lot of sets already, they're like redressing stuff. So I think the budget was $16 million, but they can throw a lot more of it at some of the effects. We get some kind of fancier, space battles. We get a whole planet blowing up. So there's a lot more going on visually than even with Wrath of Khan. I know I kind of complained about
that's true.
Gas Nebula. It looks a little bit cheaper than the motion picture because it was. They shot the hell out of that model for the motion picture and reused it, but anything that wasn't that looked a little cheaper. Here, the budgets and stuff, the effects kind of get a little bit better. I think they go back to Industrial Light and Magic.
And obviously
it looks great.
Some new models. They have the USS Excelsior, which is like the new big ship that's kind of outclassing the Enterprise. They have the whole space dock scene, which is very effects heavy. They have Genesis planet. They have the Enterprise exploding.
And we get the Klingon bird of prey, which if anybody's ever been confused and called it a Romulan bird of prey, you wouldn't be wrong because the original villains were going to be Romulans, right?
Exactly,
and then they're like, that's why they were designing it around a Romulan ship, and they decided, fuck it, it's a Klingon ship. And that's
so this was one of my trivia questions for my quiz later.
Oh,
but that's
sorry.
Okay.
Do I get points? Preemptive points?
Yeah, preemptive points.
Yeah, Mike's starting with points in the
yes.
quiz. Oh, man.
I lost bad last time. I need all the help I can get.
That's true. Originally they wanted the Romulans for the villains, or Nimoy did, and Harv Bennett, the producer. But Paramount said, you know what, Klingons are more recognizable. People want to see Klingons. Make them Klingons. But they had already built Krug's ship, the bird of prey. So they just like, you know what, it's a Klingon bird of prey now, not a Romulan bird of prey, because Romulan bird of prey was in the show originally.
And now we have warbirds, Romulan warbirds now.
Yes.
Right?
Birds of Prey is the coolest ship in Star Trek history, in my opinion.
I think
it is
yes.
very cool. Yeah. So
as far as a non-human ship, it's definitely the best.
Yeah, and this is the first appearance of one in Star Trek because they designed it for this movie. The other thing I want to mention about Nimoy directing, it kind of started a trend of Trek actors directing things, right?
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so we have, Nimoy doing this one, the next one, Shatner doing the fifth one. Then with
What if I
TNG, we
direct?
have Frakes directing a couple, as well as, episodes of TV. And that continued with even Voyager and Enterprise. We would have different actors come back, like Michael Dorn and Roxanne Dawson, who played B'Elanna Torres in Voyager, would just direct random episodes of Enterprise. LeVar Burton would direct random episodes. Like, they just brought anyone back. So I think that's kind of a cool thing, even if some of them aren't great, like, Shatner's movie and stuff like that.
I think with a show like Star Trek too, though, like you got your above the line crew, your DP, and like you could kind of come in and like direct. But it's a little bit kind of like being done for you, more or less.
And it's also kind of a way of saving money, the
Set up.
studio saving money to not hire an outside director and just have Jonathan Frakes. You're here. Why don't you direct the fucking TNG movies?
It's a low risk way for them to kind of get some experience. It's a world that they're familiar with, and I think it's a win-win. Really, the fans get to say, "Oh, LeVar Burton did," whatever. So I think it's cool, but it is a little. I think on an episodic show like this, it's like the same set every week. The stakes are quite low, but not with this movie. This is a multi-million-dollar picture. Nimoy's, coming. I think he knocks it out of the park, more or less. I mean, what can you do to follow up Wrath of Khan? This is probably as good as you're going to get, right?
Right.
Let's
set up the beginning of this movie. Obviously in Wrath of Khan, they sent Spock's body. They shot it down to the Genesis planet. Now we have Saavik and David, Kirk's son, right? David Marcus. They are on the Genesis, or they are doing science stuff on the USS Grissom, which is a science ship. They're examining the Genesis planet or whatever. Kirk and the rest of the crew, they go back to the space dock by Earth, and
they need repairs and stuff. They got beat the hell up by
Khan. It's been like a month.
Right.
It's
like
an
exact
get that great battle damage. There's like the blast
on the bridge,
of the hole. The great opening line from Shatner where he says, "It feels like the kids have left for school. Like the ship is empty. I feel alone. I feel hollow." I think that's a great setup.
We've got Bones McCoy acting crazy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right here.
Yeah.
Dr. Bones McCoy is my favorite Star Trek character. DeForest Kelley is my
Best.
favorite Star Trek actor.
Wow.
He's
this
amazing.
is his movie, right, Jacob? I mean, I think I believe I saw from your Letterboxd review of this that you had said what more of an ensemble this is, and you really have to give it up to Nimoy that he really lets the people he loved and worked with so long really shine.
That's true.
Yeah.
Like Wrath of Khan, I love it, but if you think about it, it's really a Kirk and Spock movie. Like you got some Bones, you got some of the crew.
Movie. It's not.
It's a Kirk movie. Yeah,
Right.
through and through. Yeah.
This one is really the first one where they felt like, oh, let's have Sulu do stuff, let's have Uhura do stuff, let's have Scotty do stuff, and especially the whole part where they're stealing the Enterprise, like they really get to shine in a way that they hadn't before in these movies. So I really like that aspect of it.
Scotty kind of sabages the warp drive. These newfangled machines, you just do, like it's too easy to break, whatever.
Yeah, the more complicated they make them, the easier they are to break.
Yeah, that kind of thing, right?
Scotty.
Yeah. Are you always over exaggerating your timelines? How else could I get my reputation as a medical worker captain? Like I love that stuff.
Maybe it's
yeah.
We have to do a fashion corner. I know I talked about this in the
Apologize
Star
for my
Trek
accent, by the way.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, you're allowed to do that accent, Michael. That has not been cancelable yet.
That one's okay. Okay.
The fashion in this, literally back to DeForest Kelley, the cravat that he is wearing, to become just the idea that I think when I'm 70 years old, I will wear as many layers as I can up to my neckline like he does, where literally you just know there's so much fabric on his body. Sulu in the wrapped robe.
It's great.
Because we get
Sulu
the
looks
off
great.
the mission books, Jacob, of they're not doing it for Starfleet. Let's
Yeah.
get out of these Starfleet outfits. We get these civilian looks that are just incredible.
Yeah, it's the 70s and 80s idea of what like the
It's a lot
future
of hair in this
style will
movie.
be. Yeah, I mean, Sulu's got that jacket that he's just kind of wearing over his shoulders.
It's incredible. He's wearing heels and he's being very macho. And about
He's also
George
being very
Takei.
flamboyant, I would say.
But the way
It's great.
It's almost Power of the Dog, Jacob. He's almost doing a full Phil Burbank where he's so gay underneath, but he's appearing so outwardly straight that it is just the combination It is just, this is a beautiful performance.
Yeah, and that's what I really love is the crew relationships with each other when they break Bones out of like the mental hospital.
Nichelle Nichols pulling a gun on that guy, being like, "You like adventure, kid?
Get in the closet." I'm like, "Yes, Miss Nichols." Right.
Yeah,
No,
it's great.
that whole sequence is great, and you know, I like you know, it's kind of about, you know, Bones and Spock's kind of friendship, because, you know, Bones would always be talking shit and calling him a green-blooded hobgoblin, you know, borderline racist, probably racist, but, you know, they're buddies. We're just giving each other a little shit. And to kind of have a McCoy central story kind of exploring that, and like, I choose the danger, you know, let's say, as a teaser, right? It's really powerful, I think, to look at the way Bones and McCoy were really important to each other and close friends, even though they would kind of bicker, right?
Right. So we find out, you know, as Spock is dying, he transfers his Katra, not to Kirk, because Kirk's not there with him at the time when he's about to die, but to Bones. So, you know, Sarek, his dad, comes in and is like, Kirk, why didn't you tell me? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I thought, you know, Spock's Katra was in your brain or whatever. Kirk doesn't know what he's talking about. And then we find out that's why Bones has been acting so crazy, because he's basically has Spock's consciousness inside of his brain. So half the time he's acting like Bones, half the time he's acting like Spock, doing logical stuff, you know.
Complaining about things that aren't logical, you know. Classic.
It's got that great scene in the bar you're talking about with that weird alien that speaks kind of like Yoda.
It's
oh yeah.
He does. It's incredible. We'll talk a little bit about Star Wars later. I want to put a pin in that, because I do have something I want to bring fresh to the Star Trek versus Star Wars debate. But
cool.
Going forward with this, Jacob, this is again almost a sequel, not to Wrath of Khan, but to an original episode called Amok Time, right? Where we got a lot of Kata talk, a lot of what it means to be a Vulcan. We will see young Spock go through kind of Pon farr in this movie of Vulcan puberty, right? We will see a lot of other stuff as well. But interestingly, listeners, if you're a new Trekkie, like we kind of keep urging you to be, we just got an awesome Kata episode kind of when we're recording this episode now in Strange New Worlds that I gotta say, I thought was so good, so funny, so original, so interesting, and I was so happy to see it kind of carry the torch of the search for Spock of it all.
Yeah, the
so that's,
Spock Amok
Spock
would be
Amok.
that
Spock
episode.
Amok. Amok
Which is
Time.
sort of a
Spock Amok.
homage to Amok Time with
Maybe a
which is
prequel.
the episode that introduced T'Pring, Spock's wife, his Vulcan wife, and it kind of introduced a lot of the concepts of Vulcan culture with the rituals and you know, Pon farr and all this stuff, and
that plays heavily into this plot here, you know, obviously.
Yes, exactly.
With the Katras and everything. So it is fun with the back and forth, but we find out like we need to go get my body. Is that what Spock McCoy? I can't say that.
Spock McCoy.
Spickoy.
McCoy.
A golem of Spock running around without his soul on the surface of Genesis. And it really sets up this interesting quandary of, like, you know, the body versus mind. How can we get these two things together? I love that plot.
Yeah, and it's fun that they just steal the Enterprise. You know, like we're breaking out here.
Basically, Spock's consciousness is inside of Bones' head. They want to take the Enterprise to the Genesis planet to retrieve his body, to kind of do the Vulcan ritual to put his consciousness back in his body. Starfleet tells them, no, we're not doing that. It's not, you know, logical.
Dangerous.
It's not rational.
You're not allowed to go to Genesis planet.
Yeah, it's off
Forbidden.
limits.
Which is also a sci-fi movie that influenced Star Trek greatly. A black and white kind of, you know.
Right.
Forbidden Planet.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so, you know, Kirk is told no by Starfleet, and he says, you know what, fuck that.
Do you think he listens?
Spock's my friend. No way.
I don't think he
he's
listens.
Like, I'm going anyways. The rest of the crew was like, oh, we're coming with you, of course. And they steal the Enterprise in probably my favorite sequence in this movie of them stealing the Enterprise. The, you know, Excelsior tries to chase them, but Scotty has sabotaged the Excelsior.
Stanley comes out. He screams, you know, stay away from my ship, Excelsior.
I like
get away.
I do love they try to go to warp, though, and it just like it just stutters, and there's so
Transwarp,
much hubris.
We'll talk about that right
Yeah.
now. But can we talk about our last member of the OG crew who's part of that heist that we didn't shut out? Walter Koenig as Chekhov.
Oh yeah.
We did not give him due in Wrath of Khan. I think he's the most disastrous performance in Star Trek in the original crew.
He's my
think
least
Walter
favorite
Koenig,
of the original crew members.
yes.
He works, I think, a little better when you get to Voyage Home. It's more comedic. He's doing nuclear vessels.
Yes.
Oh man, yeah.
100% yes. Then they just dial into you're an idiot. And when we jump to our future movies, we'll talk about where Anton Yelchin plays him.
Yeah, I think he does a
I'll
good
spend
job.
10 minutes talking about how he's the most beautiful human alive and how we lost that sweet angel. But
And I think he's a much
Do not
better
like this
Chekhov, like kind of
Yes.
than even the original. Like one of the few improvements
Original
on the original.
Chekhov, not my favorite. Definitely the weakest link in the crew, I think.
the
but he's just kinda
monkey's
always there.
haircut. You're just this big goon with like a teenager's haircut. You look ridiculous.
Maybe the
It's
creative
strange
didn't
because
help
he
him
was
out much either.
Brought on.
Yeah.
He was brought on to be kind of the young mop-topped guy, but now they're all in their 50s and 60s, and he's sort
Same
of
haircut.
the aging. He's the teeny bopper that's aged so much.
Hey
it's just a weird
guys,
look.
still the young kid of the crew.
Look at this
Yeah.
vessel.
God.
Yeah. He doesn't do that much that was entertaining. Everybody else did great stuff with that heist.
No, he sucks in this movie.
But so they got to go
But
back to
back to
Genesis. So it's
Genesis
like they
planet.
literally drive to space dock, get repairs, steal the ship, and go back to Genesis.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we haven't mentioned, so Saavik and David are on the planet. They find
Oh,
young
Saavik looks a lot
Spock.
different.
Saavik
They all
looks
look
different.
a lot different, Mike.
That's
you watch
true.
these two, and you're almost like, these two were in a previous movie. Why they even chose to use these characters again? You could have just written around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they did want to feature Saavik more heavily, but then Kirstie Alley was like, "I'm not coming back." They're like, "All right."
She wanted more
whatever, we'll
money, and they were
recast
like,
you."
yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
It's like, I'm on Cheers. I'm very rich and
Yeah.
famous now. They're like,
They
oh,
also
well.
just write out Carol Marcus,
Yeah.
David's mom.
Yeah, we're not
just
cutting
with no
that check.
explanation.
Yeah,
Right.
get to grieve her son. We'll get to that.
No.
Wow.
And
yeah.
you know what? They get a lot of mileage out of that, son relationship with Kirk later on in the movies too. You'll find out with his death. But
Oh, in future movies, I thought you were saying in this one. I was like,
Yeah, I'm
this
gonna
one
say
he doesn't
that.
do much, but just him being Kirk's son
Yes.
has.
Well,
this
yeah.
will start a
Later.
streak of racism inside Kurt.
Oh,
you
no.
have to
Kirk
like
hates
that.
Klingons.
So yeah, let's set that up then. So what is
Alright.
the antagonistic force here, right? We're going back to
Yes,
Genesis
yes.
planet. These Klingons, right?
Yes.
Have learned about how fucking awesomely destructive it is, and they want it. Yeah.
Yes. First of all, okay, so we have the antagonist of this movie, Krug, right? Played by
Krug.
our guy, Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown.
So a year after this, he becomes Doc Brown. And just
Yes.
to contextualize, because villain is not on people's mind, he's not Judge Doom from Roger Rabbit yet. He's not.
he's like in Taxi and stuff. Right? Doing
Leonard
comedic-
Nimoy was a big fan of Taxi, and because he had seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where he's a background, part of that crew of crazies, right?
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that this guy just always had an incredible performance in his pocket. I love Christopher Lloyd. I think he kills in this role.
Mhm.
He is good. My problem is I'm confused by okay, so the very beginning of this
Motivation?
movie, yes. Well, where did he come
Jacob,
from?
just
How
to
did he
clear that
find
up-
out about Genesis? Yeah.
Excuse me. Later, he has a phone call with Kirk where Kirk basically says, "Why are you doing this?" And his response is, "Because I hate you. It shouldn't matter."
Yeah. He doesn't have the motivations of Khan. We'll say that.
No.
He's definitely not
No,
as good of a
but-
character.
To what Mike said, Mike, what you were pointing out of people kind of making corrections, the budget being fixed, the sequences looking better and stuff.
Yeah.
A big complaint people had was and Joe did too in the last one, if you recall, our villain and hero never get face to face. So Leonard Nimoy knew going into it too, he wanted to create an actual physical threat for Kirk. And I think
Right.
Krug does a good job of that at least.
And there's
Yeah,
a
at
boarding
least
party.
meet
There's a
on the
lot of
planet.
back
Yeah.
and forth, and you get kind of a punch up like you would in a classic Star Trek, like the Gorn episode that I talked about. You get a little fist fight for Kirk, just with a higher
Yeah.
budget, that kind of thing.
But what
yeah.
I'm confused by, so one of the very first scenes of this movie
Mm-hmm.
is this random Klingon lady who's on the ship with humans. She gives the Genesis information to Krug right at the very beginning, and then Krug blows up her ship,
I guess she's a Klingon. She speaks Klingon.
I think she's supposed to be a Klingon, but
okay.
it's very confusing because they don't explain like who she is, where she came from, why she has how she got the Genesis information,
Who
how
those
she
other
knows
two
crew.
guys were.
Yeah,
You're trying to get a movie going. Stop
and
asking
I literally
questions.
just watched this movie again, and I'm still so confused by
And
that
you're
scene.
watching for it this time to
Yeah.
try to find answers. Here's the
Any
best
kind
that
of
I can come up
explanation.
with.
Yeah,
Two countries that were at a Cold War, Russia and America. Really think about it back in the time. What actually inspired these two factions?
Mhm.
right.
Now, these two people are at war with each other, and just imagine at the island of Hawaii, somebody goes like, "Well, you know, they invented something that like creates life and destroys it, and it's like an atom bomb too, right?" Regardless of who you are or what you think their motivation is, you can see an outside party going like, "Well, hold on, those people shouldn't have that. We should go get that." And that's really all this needs to come down to is he is aware that there is a superpower weapon that exists. He knows the people he hates has it. Let's go get that fucking weapon.
Yeah,
And if you
he
think
mentions.
about it-
Well, he mentions vaguely that he's aware of like, oh, they're working on this peace treaty, but like, fuck that, they're gonna exploit
fuck that
Klingons.
shit.
Like he wants to
So
be
we'll
like
deal with that 2
Klingons
movies from
first.
now.
Yeah. He's kind of going
Um,
against the active government. He's like
yeah.
a rogue element, you know, an
And
extremist.
the Klingon of it all is interesting because up to this point, you know, we had seen Klingons in the original show. They didn't have the forehead bumps and stuff. They were much simpler makeup design. We see them in the beginning of the motion picture, right? Those 3 Klingons that are destroyed by V'ger with the new design.
Right.
And people are like,
Yes.
oh, that's a cool look for the Klingons. Let's see more of those. Didn't see Klingons in Wrath of Khan. Now we finally see more of the Klingons than we ever had before. And the biggest
Wow.
representation of Klingons in Star Trek to this point is Christopher Lloyd as Lord Crew.
It's this guy who like stands up, screams on a very tight set because they were reusing the set and kind of like, you know, just trying to make it look different to save money. And he's got like a Muppet like attached to his crown
a
that's
targ.
just like going back and forth. That's cool.
Yeah, and that was that's the first time we've seen a Targ, which is the Klingon dogs that they have.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Klingon lore is being created for this movie. We got
Sure.
Klingon Bird of Praise. We've got a new language, which they've developed more and more specifically for this movie, and I'll talk about that more later. But
Well, I kind of want to know about it now, Jacob.
Yeah.
I did have the question while watching this. Is this at a point where nerds are teaching themselves this language, or are literally the people? Is Christopher Lloyd just like, I'm just allowed to say gibberish?
well, this is the movie that they created Klingon language for. So this guy named Mark Auckland, who was the one who created the Klingon language.
I believe it's Achlen.
Yes.
Blah, blah, blah.
In the motion picture, they had a couple lines where the actors were just kind of saying gibberish, but
Okay.
basically he took those phrases and created an entire language around that using different grammar rules. He tried to make it as alien as possible, so he uses different grammar rules in English. But over the course of shooting this movie, that language would also change because anytime an actor got the line wrong or something like that, instead of reshooting it, they would just change the entire language because they felt it was easier to
Okay.
rewrite
To match the
language.
performance.
So it's both.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Ah.
both things I said.
So it's
That's
kind of
crazy.
adapting as they shoot this movie to fit whatever the actors are doing. But
That's cool.
Huh. So
yeah,
it's
and after this, it
codifying
gets
what people
expanded a
would
lot more.
do weddings in, 20 years
Yeah.
from then.
Well, and obviously, TNG starts about 3 years after this movie in '87, and that's where the Klingon language really gets expanded. And obviously, through Worf, we see a lot more of the Klingon culture as well.
Tolkien would be proud
Yeah.
of creating an actual
But
language.
this is like the genesis, if you will,
Hey,
of
I will.
a lot of Klingon stuff. So
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's by Christopher Lloyd and also other TV sitcom actor. I don't know if you noticed that he's an extra. John Larroquette plays one of the Klingons hanging out in the background, too.
Nice.
Very strange.
A good
Yeah.
sitcom pedigree. Kirstie Alley last time,
Yeah, it's like the whole cast of Cheers. and
It's
the
almost
guest
like they're
stars.
watching TV shows to see who they should hire for their Star Trek movie.
You're
Right.
exactly right.
Go figure.
Yeah, so we have
So they're on a collision course now,
Yes,
Kirk
we
and
set up
Everybody
the
wants the
villains, the
Genesis
Klingons, like you
power.
said.
yeah.
we're going to
Some
meet at
weird
Genesis.
stuff is happening on Genesis, Jacob. So our crew of our 2 heroes from last time, David and Savik, say, let's go down there. Let's go see what we find. And they go. They find a life reading. David goes, oh, It's these microbes we brought down here that have now evolved into a complex,
worms.
crazy-looking organism. It's not a big deal to me, even though I've just discovered like life being like,
Right.
let's get out of here. And Slavic's like, what, you fool? Like, let's open this thing.
Right, and we find out, David used proto-matter when developing the Genesis project, and that was a big no-no because now life is rapidly developing on this planet, but it's going to destroy the planet, and so basically because of that, that's why he deserves to die, because he used this proto-matter. That's kind of the logic of the film, I guess, but obviously we find a young Spock who's basically just Spock's body without his consciousness growing.
So let's hit that though. The dead body, okay. Leonard Nimoy, who is, if you looked at him carbon dating based on his face, you would say 400 years old.
And
I would say
it's Vulcan.
at least, okay. So 50-year-old actor, right? Leonard Nimoy.
Yes.
He's in that thing. It's blasted by some space goo. Immediately shrivels up to like an embryo, and then from there just expands out. Is that what we think?
Or is he just absorbed into
Benjamin
the
Button?
planet,
It's not
and then
Benjamin Button.
is he like his matter is absorbed into Genesis, and through the
that's
proto-matter
interesting.
just
Yes, I think it's
rebirthed,
something like that.
like
yeah.
as a
Oh, that's
all life just
really?
grows at an accelerated
because there's like a
rate
fog
on
that goes
Genesis.
over the who knows like is what
Oh.
I'm saying.
That
I'm
would
just
make me
assuming
feel a
it
lot
created
better,
a new
actually,
entity,
Mike.
like it
I would
recycled
love
his
to ditch
DNA.
this body.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But
It could regrow your body
who knows?
at an accelerated rate. But of course, young Spock, he, they have this thing called Ponfar. So he's going through basically puberty at an
Set it up.
accelerated rate. So Savick kind of has to essentially dry jack him so that he doesn't explode from
Oh, Jesus.
hormones.
I don't
So-
like that at all.
So that's the greatest thing
That's
I've
what's
ever
in this
heard in my
movie, right?
life, Jacob.
Yeah, we've
Yeah.
seen it.
So Vulcans are so logical that they subsist all physical pleasure, blah, 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 blah. But of course have to let that out.
Every
And so
7 years.
Every 7 years, they will explode if they don't get dry jacked.
They don't, if they
So-
don't release their,
Sexual energy.
hormones sexually, they will go
And-
crazy.
And here it is. This is my debate now. I truly do think and wonder, is Star Trek superior to Star Wars? And will it always be? Because it can deal with adult themes like sex. Kirk goes through the stars fucking everything he can see and would fuck a treble, which are in these movies, if he could, and probably does.
Yeah.
Leonard Nimoy, a part of their alien culture is how they get their sexual energy out, okay? That's interesting. Now, for as much as family and romance and dynasties are a part of Star Wars, they're remarkably sexless, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
really
yeah.
no sex in Star Wars other than I think Anakin and Padme making Luke and Leia. It's like
They
the one
hold
time anyone's ever
hands,
had
and,
sex.
and you could maybe say the Force makes them.
Yeah.
Like I'm
yeah, it
not
might be
even
Immaculate
positive.
Conception.
Yeah, I don't know that they actually have sex.
Yeah. It's more metaphor, right? But then
Yes.
in Star Trek, it's explicit, and maybe for better,
There's
for
life.
ill, it's a Roddenberry holdover. That Star
Yes,
Trek is
it
more
100%
interested in
is.
I
sexuality.
think about
Attitude
Ilya. I
towards-
think about that first movie with her
Right.
species being sexual monsters or whatever he
Right.
described them as.
But the idea is other writers can take that kind of DNA. Maybe
Yes.
don't use the term DNA, but that element, and then you can treat it more respectfully, more interestingly. And like here's
Yes.
a culture that deals with sexuality in this way. Klingons in are completely different ways. We'll learn more in
Yes.
like the next generation. So yeah,
Yeah,
I mean it
and I think-
definitely treats cultures, I think, as more well-rounded. I mean, even think of the languages. I don't think I could learn to speak Gungan, even though Misa really want to.
Yeah, I think
Careful,
Star Trek is more.
You're right. We're out of line. I'm stepping back.
Star Trek is more adult oriented, and it's always been very progressive for its time. But
Yes.
sometimes certain things about it don't age that well, even with certain parts of TNG, certain parts of even the '90s shows. Like they were progressive for their time, but there's certain limitations to how they viewed sexuality and gender and that kind of thing. But they do their best, I think, for the time.
They're asking questions, answers change, and then they ask new questions. That's about all you can ever ask as a society for. I'm incredibly proud of that.
Yeah.
New worlds, new civilizations, right? The next step beyond, phase 2, so to speak. So
Right.
yeah.
Right.
But back to the search for Spock. So we have The
Get to the
Enterprise.
pond
we have a
far.
dry jacking.
We
Uh-huh.
have a dry jack.
It's like dry
We have
docking.
two
Dry
hands,
jack.
and it's just. Can I just say real quick? I don't want to leave it just yet, but Saavik was Nimoy's mentee in
Yes.
the last film. It is set up in this incredible way of you're a
Oh, I
half
don't like
Romulan. Mike, this is what I'm getting to. You're a half Romulan, you're half Vulcan. Now your mentor, who is dead's body has appeared before you at the prime of their life, and they're like, "Let's get it on." I mean, that's
bonfire.
like that is like intense, right?
Yeah. Well, essentially, Spock.
That
is
is not
going through
logical, that's
puberty.
for sure. What a
Yeah.
thing to try to
He's
figure
going
out.
through puberty at an accelerated rate, and so he needs this older woman to
Guide
jack
him.
It's exactly what happened to me, dog. I understand. You need
Oh,
an
no.
older woman to get you there. It's
Yeah.
exactly how it happened.
Oh man, the search
Yeah.
for
So
Spock.
the stuff on the planet.
Not that it's not the most
No,
plot relevant
it's-
point, but it is a
here's-
fascinating
here's-
point, I guess.
It's
Yeah.
fascinating. Here's what I'll say. It's the only parts where I'm kind of bored with this movie. I
Yeah,
kind
it's
of zone
not my
out a
favorite-
little
my
bit.
least favorite part of this movie.
And because you're kind of faced with the Back to the Future thing where you're like, what is going on here? like what is the underbelly of what's actually this? And you
This
kind
is
of
what-
mentally get past it.
Yeah, this is what
Yeah.
allowed Doc Brown to understand the concept of Back to the Future. That's why he took the movie.
Marty, did you see the search for Spock?
The Genesis planet.
We gotta
Right.
get your mother there.
Calvin Klein. I do think the Genesis Planet stuff is the weakest for me. I mean, we get a recast
Yes.
Saavik. You get the young Spock growing up. It's a little hammy, even the performance,
Well, now we're
throughout.
colliding. It's all coming together.
Yeah, but then once we get, our Klingons and Kirk there, then the stakes kind of start to escalate. And, as we alluded to, what's the Klingon's name?
Krug.
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 He
Lord
really
Krug.
wants the Genesis data, and he'll do anything to get it, including start killing prisoners. And
That's right.
that's what he does.
Yeah. So Enterprise. Well, first, the Klingon bird of prey shows up, destroys the USS Grissom, which is the science ship that's orbiting.
Which
the Genesis planet.
rules. It's got that
Yeah.
cool mono cylinder thing underneath, and it's got
Mhm.
that jackass guy who's like, I'm the captain of a science exposition. I'm like a big fish in a little pond, and you're like, this
Yeah.
is great.
Mm-hmm.
And so he orders to fire upon that ship. The Klingon fires on it, and he's like, "Oh, lucky shot! I destroyed the whole thing." And Christopher Lloyd's like, "I wanted prisoners," and then shoots that guy, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too
and-
efficient.
yeah. So they go down to the planet, capture Saavik, David, and young Spock. Enterprise shows up. They're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. And let's see, where does it go from there?
Well, again, give us the Genesis or I'll kill somebody. I'm not doing
Yeah.
that. All
And
right.
The best part of that
Kirk's
is
faced with another
he's
dilemma.
like, kill somebody. I don't care who. And basically, they're about to kill, I think, Saavik, and then David kind of sacrifices himself, jumps in front. They have a little fight.
Mm-hmm.
David gets stabbed.
My son.
and my son is dead. You've killed my son, you bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good.
I think I hate it. It's like it undoes to me one of the most interesting things of Khan is here's the consequences of your actions.
Yes.
And it's a living person, right? And they've grown up, and you didn't do shit to raise them. You finally meet them in Khan. They're out there doing science, and then now it's like, David is dead. I'm free of responsibility. Carol Marcus is not even in this movie. It's like,
No.
Right.
great.
He
We're
was
just gonna
never
undo all
Dr.
that character
Kirk, Mike.
growth. He's
You're
more
so
sad
big.
about the ship.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially at the
That's
end.
my problem.
He
you
never
know?
had the connection with David. He was always Dr. Marcus. He was never
Yeah.
Dr.
He got
Kirk.
3
It's-
scenes, and then now he's dead.
Tells
So
him
it's
he's
like
proud to be his son. At the end
It's-
of
yeah.
Khan, but
Yeah,
David
I
makes
don't
more of an effort than Kirk does. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
These movies, Jacob, because you've gone ahead, have a weird relationship with family members, is all
Yes.
I'll say.
I think
Yeah.
it does pay off eventually. Like in the 6th movie, it's a big thing where, Kirk has this big grudge against the
He
Klingons.
loses his mind.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He
Killed
has
my
sex
son, I
with
can
David
never
Bowie's
forgive you.
wife.
Yeah, he's mad about the Klingons, but we'll get
Shapeshifter.
there.
Um,
So they'll maybe
yeah.
touch on ideas that they realize they should have explored further in future movies.
Yes.
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
agree. It doesn't David's death doesn't have a huge impact in this
No.
movie as much as it should.
Mhm.
But then they basically trick the Klingons into coming aboard Enterprise. They set the self-destruct sequence, right? And they
So
beam
long,
down.
suckers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they beam down
That's
to the
exactly
planet,
what they say.
and
Yep.
they say, "So long, suckers." They blow up the Enterprise, which is
Yeah.
another awesome effect scene, I think, of
Yes,
the Enterprise
very cool.
exploding. Yeah, and obviously that was all done practical, and I just think things were better when they were just models and practical. Like,
Yes.
obviously a lot of people feel that way, but CG, it just doesn't look as good, right?
No.
It looks insane. Although there is the moment where Takei is trying to blow up the console, where he's just pointing his remote control at it, and there's no
Yes.
special effects, and there's just sparks. I mean, it's bad. Now,
Yeah.
Jacob, you were saying before the Star Trek of it all, if you think about it, this is the return of the Jedi. They're kind of acting like, let's put an end to some things. Stripped off our uniforms. You're seeing the crew in a way you haven't in a while. These are people. We're going to let them be people at the end of this movie. We're bringing back, we're on a quest for the missing piece, aka the most important character in this universe, and we have just destroyed the iconic ship for this franchise.
Mhm.
Kind of feel things settling down to say goodbye, right?
Yeah. And you feel that model has been used for like 2 movies. So it's like you're
Yeah.
literally
Yes.
blowing up the picture model. Like it's a meaningful artifact that's being destroyed on film, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's a big deal. I think they wanted to one up some of the things that they did in Wrath of Khan. They're like, what can we
For
do?
sure.
Let's blow up the Enterprise.
What are the big
And-
moves?
Yeah.
And obviously they would do it again in the TNG era, and we'll get there in a couple.
But it's one of the
months.
most iconic moments from this movie in particular is,
Totally.
the one where the
And-
Enterprise blows up. Yeah.
Yeah, so it blows
First
up
one.
so much so that at the end they have to take the Klingon bird of prey, and that becomes their ship for the next movie, basically.
And they're
Yeah,
trying to figure
which
out
is
how to
really
fly it. It's very
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, it's great. Do you think you could operate the controls at your station if you were a Klingon? You're under that red light the whole time. You kind of really can't see. Krug is shooting people beside you left and right, so you also kind of have to take over their duty on the console.
Yeah.
You're just kind of like,
He's like making
okay,
you
I
feed
can't
his
keep
dog.
up with this. Yeah, see,
Yeah.
the dog is like barking. You're like, all right, it kind of
Yeah.
smells in here. I kind of can't see.
That's life on board a Klingon ship.
Yep. As Riker will learn.
Yes, and as we find out later in TNG, in the
I have
Klingon
not seen that.
hierarchy, if you're an underling, like you can just challenge the captain to a duel to the death, and if you defeat him, you're just the new captain.
You're the new captain. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
Plenty
so
of upwards
Krug,
mobility.
10 minutes before
Yeah.
this movie started was like the janitor, and he's like, all right, Bakla, it's me now.
Yeah. Yeah. It could have been. It could have been.
That's great.
Yeah.
So most of Krug's crew gets
Krug's crew.
blown up in the Enterprise.
Mhm.
Krug beams down to Genesis. They finally have the confrontation. Kirk says, okay, beam my crew to the bird of prey. It's just between you and
Just me, you want?
Yeah.
Mhm.
They have a big battle, big fight scene in a
Mm-hmm.
volcano or whatever.
It's
Klingons are
exploding.
stronger than humans, Terrans, or whatever we are.
Yeah.
They're supposed to be, at least in the TNG era, they kind of become.
They're supposed to be,
Worf
but
is
he's
kind of-
fighting a Shatner. That's different than a standard
Yeah,
human.
Shatner can fight
shirt
the Gorn.
stays on,
He
though.
can fight a Gorn. He can fight a
That like, cuts
Klingon.
down half the physical ability, though.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true.
He's still got it.
But yeah, as the Genesis planet is kind of self-destructing, like the Enterprise, they're fighting to the death. And even in the end, like he's kind of hanging on the cliff, about to fall in the lava.
Who
Kirk
saves
still
the
like
day?
grabbed my hand, and Krug's like, "Nah, fuck that. I still hate you." And he's like, "All right, whatever." And he kicks
Double
him off.
birds.
What was the point of this? Fuck you!
Right.
It's like it's just that point at the end of the movie. You're like, I don't even know why I killed that guy.
1.28
I don't even know that guy's
gigawatts.
name.
Yeah,
They
it's
never
might
Krug
not.
never introduces himself by name, so they never know.
Did you know Khan? Is that what this was about?
Yeah.
No.
Right.
It's like, oh
Don't worry
shit.
about it.
Huh.
So he dies. They take the bird of prey. They go to Vulcan.
'Cause,
They have
yeah.
a big Vulcan
Big
ceremony
ceremony.
at the end with
Now-
Dame Judith Anderson.
Now, would you guys have wanted to get him off that planet a couple minutes earlier? Don't you want just like if you're gonna be
little
like a
younger
young
Spock.
Vulcan now? Yeah, it's like we had to get this guy at Hobgoblin age again.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's just a coincidence that he ages to his exact age that he was before he died. I
By the
guess.
way, I feel great.
Well, no, you can't.
look
You can't
terrible.
artificially age past the age that you landed on Genesis. Obviously, that's the terminus.
Of course.
It must stop there, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he can age normally at that point.
So that's
I don't
basically
know.
the end of this movie. They go back to Vulcan. They have this kind of long, drawn out
And it
ceremony.
rules.
Yeah, and they put his Katra back into his body. Dame Judith Anderson, who's an actress that worked since basically 1915, was in a bunch of like movies in the 30s and 40s, was retired for like a long time, came out of retirement just to do this movie, and then died like a couple years later.
Who she
Oh,
was like
jeez.
the priestess or whatever?
Yeah, she was
the
doing the
Vulcan
ceremony.
high priestess.
That's crazy.
Just like a famous like silent film actress.
And you'll of course be
That's
the
cool,
woman
though.
who touches
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, you
What
know.
is this?
But what? The
I
ceremony?
just can't even imagine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, you get, but it's cool. You know, legend of the screen, I guess. Why not? As a Vulcan high priestess, I'll buy that. But yeah, I like the little touches here, where again, like it's McCoy. We've recovered Spock's body, and then Sarek's like, you know, there will be danger, and as I said, I choose the danger. You know, like he has to willingly go through it, knowing that he's at great personal risk. You know, but he does it because Bones is a badass, and we get Spock back, and then with famous line, you know, your name is Jim. And it's like, oh, he does remember us. And then you're like, oh, that's our guy.
Of course. To go back to DeForest Kelley, to his motivation of it all, when he gives the line of, this is just punishment for you losing all of those arguments.
Yeah.
That is
blooded bastard.
a perfect encapsulation of their relationship. You
Yep.
get his point of view. He's always the victor. These squabbles that they've had, the logic of it all. I mean, it's just... I cried again watching this movie like I did Wrath of Khan, except this time I cried at the beginning little box flashback version when he was saying the "you'll be my friend" part.
Yep.
The ending of this obviously does not hit as strong as Wrath of Khan because you feel
You
the
can't.
loss of that.
Right.
There is a joy to this though. It does feel well.
The ending
earned.
is like basically the gang's all back together.
Yes.
Spock's back. We got the status quo has returned essentially.
We're gonna be okay. We're
Yeah.
old. We're all old now. and
We're just getting older. and we'll get
when
older
you
in
look
the
at
movie.
us, you want to be rooting for us, and it's just like at the end of it, I am like, my grandparents are happy. Like it's like this
Right.
crazy thing.
Like, why did you come and get me? You know, what would it have if I didn't come and get you? It would have cost me my soul. You know, like he had to do it. You know,
He had to
bring
do
him
it,
back.
Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of Bones, that's another thing. Once we get to the Abrams verse, I think that was another great recasting. Our guy,
We're gonna
Billy
talk all
Butcher.
about that.
Yeah,
I don't think
yeah.
There's a bad person cast in those movies.
Sure.
Yeah, we'll get there for those. But yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
we
see
will
another
get there.
interpretation of that relationship. But
yeah,
yeah,
I
the
do
search for
wanna say
Spock, they
this-
found him.
Baby,
That's
they
all.
found him. I wanted to say this
That's
on
my
air
review.
and throw this out. Should we? This is my pitch. Should we take a break once we're done with these main ones before we move on to the TNG ones? So I'm going to say before Generations, not
Right.
after, because that
Mhm.
keys off the Picard ones well.
Yeah.
Should we watch Galaxy Quest for one of the months and
Oh.
review it
Good.
like it's a Star Trek movie?
I would do that.
Well,
I would do
technically,
that.
like if we were doing it chronologically, Galaxy Quest was like probably
In the middle of the TNG
after,
run.
Yeah, in the middle of the TNG, like 99.
It's a pastiche and homage to this era. I mean, all
Yeah.
the characters that you hit perfectly of.
I mean,
the
Alan
Bones
Rickman is basically the Nimoy,
the
right?
Leonard Nimoy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. Yeah,
I would do that
I'm
before
totally down
Generations.
for
I'm
that.
open
Tony
to it.
Shalhoub is the Bones. I mean, it's just like it's perfect.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
we should.
I'm
I think
with it.
that'd
I'm
be
with
funny.
it. Who's the guy with the mustache?
Sam Rockwell. Is,
Sam Rockwell is
just
very much the Kirk
amazing-
that's on Strange New Worlds. Like
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
they're doing
Absolutely.
that, yeah,
Samuel
on
Kirk.
purpose. But
Yeah.
anyway, I'm
He's the
in,
red
I'm here
shirt who's
for it.
Convinced he's gonna die the whole movie.
Right, right.
Yeah,
Samuel
great.
Kirk.
Great movie.
David
We
wasn't
never
even wearing a
saw
red
that.
shirt in this movie. He got it.
I've done the shows now where I haven't seen the Bones, like you guys said in the TNG pilot. I'd be curious to see what DeForest Kelley looks like in that and all the makeup. I've done the one with Scotty. I'm sure he does. I've done the one now where Ambassador Spock is working behind the scenes to do the peace treaty with the Romulans. That fucking ruled. I love that one.
Yes.
But truly, there's no the Marcus is like there's David Marcus he's just regaled to these two movies that we just did, and in Star Trek lore, never again.
Well, he's mentioned, and I mean, it obviously in Undiscovered Country, it's a big point of Kirk having animosity towards the Klingons because of
Right.
that. But he's really not that important.
just
No,
but
well, if you think a
there's
guy-
no show that could have him.
yeah.
I'm saying everyone's all about Zephyrin Cochrane and what a fucking legend he is. And then we see how he was in real life, right? He's kind of like an alcoholic weirdo, right? Genius, but he's a weirdo. David invented a fucking device that can create life on desolate planets.
Right.
That should be a big deal.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
He should be a big deal.
Yeah, the Genesis project is such a big part of like these two movies, but then it's pretty much
Never
just dropped
again.
after this.
Such a major scientific discovery. Like, it feels like it should
Yeah.
be
This is my
relevant.
favorite. Now,
Yeah.
kind of breaking news. We should probably do a little bit of our homework from the last episode. Did you guys read potentially a Khan series in development that would be his life on SETI Alpha 5 as it sort of like becomes, I guess, sort of like an Obi-Wan, like it'd be just another like people in the desert.
That
planet?
sounds like a
Who
terrible
would they
idea.
even cast? Yeah, who would they?
Who
even
would
cast
you
to
do?
replace Montalban?
I couldn't even guess to get somebody to play the young Montalban, right? Who would you
Yeah,
do?
That sounds like a bad idea. I don't know.
It sounds like a terrible show. What do you
Like
do?
Edgar Ramirez, maybe? I don't know.
I don't want to see it. They're barely keeping me around with Strange New Worlds. Like, miss me with that.
That's the thing.
Right,
I
right.
don't know. I don't know. I just want more of. I'm just nervous that we're leaving my favorite part, Jacob. That's why I'm stretching this out. I love this era so much. This little.
I gotta say,
swing.
I'm excited for
This
next
little arc.
month, and I'm excited for 3 months from now. I'm excited for 4 and 6.
This
Those are
next
both
one's the end for me, in my opinion, and then from there we'll go to the other one.
I left my Spock in San Francisco, you know.
but
I say,
love
listen,
that movie.
Undiscovered Country, very underrated. I'm excited to do that one. Final Frontier, pretty bad. That's gonna be
Yeah, that's what I hear. But you know, that's
that's
again,
the future.
Yeah,
that's
story for
Spock,
another
though.
time.
Let's wrap up here. Let's roll over. We're going to do our wrap up. We're going to do a special little quiz that Jacob's got prepared for us.
Yes.
Coming up next,
right.
Normies Like Us. Search for Spock.
Wok-tak, ak, wok-ta.
Lee.
Bless you.
Yeah, watch DS9 and TNG if you really want to see more Klingon stuff.
Here's the thing. I've never seen Amok Time. I might watch that right when we get done here.
Yeah, that's fun.
I've seen the battle between him and Kirk at the end, but I've never seen the full episode. Because I remember my dad being like, look at this. This is crazy.
I only learned about that through Cable Guy.
Yes, I think that's literally why I think we rented that mic, and then I think he was like, "You don't know that episode?
Honey, we're gonna
Hold
watch
on,"
it.
And just like ran down and like got the tape and was like, "Here we go."
That's really awesome. I didn't see it till years later, and I just kept hearing Jim Carrey singing the music as I was watching the episode. I'm like, oh man, yeah. But that's very funny.
Well, actually, Final Frontier will be interesting with them having Cybok in Strange New Worlds, right?
Cybok. I'm not excited.
Yeah.
Here's my last. We're gonna jump to Jacob's quiz right now. We are back on Normies Like Us talking Trek. My last Christopher Lloyd thing of him as a villain. Do you guys remember? Because we're the same age group, but we've never talked about this film. Do you remember that Dennis the Menace live action movie?
He was the villain in that?
He plays Switchblade Sam, Mike. A
Google go.
drifter homeless man with like scars, and he's so scary in it that as a kid I was like, oh, it's too much.
Oh,
You know what else I
wow.
like him in is
Yeah, that's
scary, right?
crazy. That's
the
scary.
Addams Family movies.
And of course he's Fester. How could we not bring up
Yes.
Uncle Fester?
Okay,
He's
well,
the
there you go.
best.
I
He's
keep-
the best.
I keep wanting to say Jake Lloyd, but I don't know
Jake
why
Lloyd,
I
that's a
keep
song,
doing
yeah.
that. That's a different thing.
Yeah,
But yeah. So,
but we're back.
searching for
we're back.
Spock.
We're doing
You
the
have
Search
a
for Spock, the
little
Wrath of
quiz.
Cobb quiz. I call it the Wrath of Cobb. I'm just going to call it that.
I like it. You know, Vulcans are most intrigued by the pursuit of knowledge, and I hope I have enough knowledge to overcome this this
I'm gonna be
challenge
logical
that you
on
lay
this
before us.
That's right.
You know.
So just like last time, you know, it's going to be a true false type of thing. So I'm going to read a question, and then you both, I guess, both will say true or false, and the one who gets the most right wins. I think Colin won last time.
Yeah,
Is that right?
I believe
handily.
maybe Joe did,
Or maybe
and then
Joe won
you
somehow.
won mine, I believe, when we did the one back in the
I have
day.
not won one.
Okay.
I'm bad.
Yeah.
Maybe
And
I'll win
Normies,
this.
please play at home too.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yes.
I get 1 point though already, right?
That's and Mike starts with
Yeah.
1
I
point.
start with 1.
Well, basically, every month I try to have enough
Mike-
trivia questions just in case we mention them earlier in the pod. You know, I have backups in case I need.
Nice.
Mike, you had
Yes.
0 points, but you shot them down to the Genesis planet, and they were actually interacting with proto matter.
Right.
Because
Well,
really, there's only
I had 64 points, and then they reverted back to 0, and they're slowly climbing up again.
yeah. But then you had to dry jack your points.
It's not easy. But like I said, it's similar to dry docking because it's it's something they love to do in these movies. Let's quiz it up.
Yeah, you know, there's
Quiz.
only so many trivia about this movie, so hopefully there's not too many repeats from what we already talked about. But let's
Yeah.
So first question. Here we go. The villains of this movie were originally intended to be Romulans.
Yes. So I get a point for that. True.
That was true, of course. And as I mentioned, Krug's ship was going to be a Romulan bird of prey. It was changed to a Klingon bird of prey because it was already built.
Let's thematically would make more sense in that this is a very Vulcan heavy drama to have the inverse of
Yes.
them, the Romulans. So I get that.
And if you've seen the original show, actually, interestingly, so the first episode the Romulans are on is kind of a very famous one. I'm forgetting the name of it, but it's basically a naval battle like Wrath of Khan between the Romulans
Cool.
and the Enterprise. But the first Romulan you ever see on camera is played by Mark Leonard, who would go on to also play Sarek, Spock's father. So he played the first Romulan on TV.
Very interesting. Very cool.
But with
fact.
like the bowl cut in ears, like
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
retcon from Romulans. They've sort of always been Vulcan-esque. Okay, cool.
Yes, and so the Romulans
Yeah.
are sort of distant relatives of Vulcans who split
Right.
off from Vulcan a long time ago, and they're all about emotion instead of about logic. Right?
Which is
Yeah.
like Gene Roddenberry being like, "This is so good."
Well, it's like,
One
what can we
species all
do
lost
with the
both,
same
yeah.
prosthetics? We got two different
It's
races.
like amazing.
Right.
I love
Yeah,
The
it.
whole
yeah.
reason Romulans look like that is because the reveal of the Romulans in that episode, Balance of Terror, that's what it's called.
That's right, Balance
Balance of
Terror. Yep.
Terror. I have
Famous
Classic
episode, one of the
episode.
best of the original show.
Mhm.
But the reason they look like Vulcans was because basically when they're revealed, it's the first time anyone's ever seen Romulans in that episode, and they see for the first time that they look like Vulcans, and basically there's people on the Enterprise like being racist towards Spock and being like, "Wait, why do you look like that?" So
That's
Oh,
cool.
jeez.
yeah, so that's why
Yeah.
they look like that. But anyways, next question.
Yes.
Edward James Olmos was Nimoy's first choice to play Krug. True or false?
All right, so I'm going to do a thing. If I have one finger up, I'm guessing true. If I have two, I'm guessing false. Behind my hand, right?
Okay.
So that way I can guess. You're going to have to believe me, but I have my guess. So
Okay.
one for true, two for false. How's that? And then you can 3,
Okay.
2, 1 reveal.
Okay, I'm gonna do the
Sure.
same thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Jacob,
So we're ready.
3, 2, 1, reveal.
I had false. Yes.
False. That was true.
Oh, no points for either of
Nimoy
us.
wanted Edward James Olmos, but
But that's
studio.
you just really feel him being like worked in Star Wars. Or
Yeah.
no,
Right?
not Edward James Olmos. Oh, I was thinking the other guy. That's why I had it wrong in my head. Edward
Who were
James
you
Olmos.
thinking?
Interesting. I was
Edward James
thinking
Olmos
of
in a Blade Runner.
Miami
I
Vice.
was thinking of the voice of Darth Vader.
Oh,
I was really blowing it.
yeah.
What's his
Now I'm
name?
blanking on his name too.
James Earl
um,
Jones.
James
Thank
Earl
you,
Jones.
James
that's
Earl
right.
Jones.
Yes,
Three
yes,
names.
sorry.
James is in
Edward
there.
James Olmos.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get it.
Yeah.
Edward
I was
James
saying
Olmos
Jake
obviously
Lloyd,
would go
so
on.
So
whatever.
Battlestar. You're
Battlestar
Battlestar
Galactica.
Adama.
Yes, that's
Yeah,
right. Admiral
very cool.
Adama.
That would've been cool.
So Nimoy wanted him, but then was eventually convinced. Well, the producer Harv Bennett was like, "Check out this guy, Christopher Lloyd." He's like, "You know what? He won me over because his more dramatic and operatic kind of performance won Nimoy over."
Imagine with a shaved head, strangling a rabbit named Roger.
Yeah,
He's
yep,
like,
yep,
what?
yep.
He's like, nothing.
This is operatic. Yeah.
Yeah. Another fun fact that isn't in this quiz, but I just thought was interesting when I was reading trivia about this. Christopher Lloyd apparently didn't understand how communicators worked. So anytime he's like he's on the planet, he's communicating with his ship. He's just yelling into the sky, like the ship is supposed to
Beam
hear
him
him. And
down.
apparently, they had to tell him repeatedly, "Don't yell into the sky. Just speak normally."
Speak into your hand.
They can hear you. Have you
He didn't
used the
understand
phone?
that.
That's great.
That's
So
great.
it's
That's
a funny
great.
image.
Ship?
Yeah. But next question.
All right.
Nicholas Meyer wasn't asked to direct this movie. True or false? Was not asked to direct.
I'm
Okay,
ready.
I'm ready.
Okay, glad we're doing this visual thing.
Yeah, well, you'll
we
know.
say it once we're done.
It's
You
just
say
so that-
go, and then we
yeah.
reveal.
All right, 3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
I have false.
True. It was false. He was asked to direct, but he
Yes.
refused because he
Mike's
was
cleaning up.
just
I
so
got
upset
only 2
by
points.
how they changed his ending. That he wanted
Yeah.
Spock's death to be final, and he was like, "No, I'm not coming back." Eventually, obviously, they did get him to come back for Star Trek 6.
Yeah, eventually.
The
he's
search
like,
for more money,
"Actually,
yeah.
Star Trek is my life.
Yeah.
All these, pretty much the answer to everyone leaving Star Trek is eventually like, "What's that? I
We'll be
couldn't do
back."
anything else."
Mhm.
Yeah. Next question.
Got it.
And this we kind of already covered, so I'll just say it. But a working Klingon language was created for this film.
Oh, yeah.
That is true. Mark
Revealed,
Ockrent
yes. Points for
created
both
the
of us.
language based on a few improvised Klingon phrases in Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Like, I knew.
And like
We
I
true.
said, they would change the grammar based on actors sometimes getting the line wrong because it was deemed easier to rewrite the
God,
language than reshoot the
to
scene.
be an extra who's hired that day, who says one line, fucks it up, and then goes,
He's
"I
like,
don't
"Damn
know,"
it,
and then
gotta
just
change the whole
leave. And
fucking
some
language.
guys, whole job is like, "Who hired this fucking idiot?"
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
What a
changing
life.
the syntax of, oh, that's how you say kill a singular object, not a plural
yeah, They
object.
were saying plural earlier.
Yeah, that's kill them is
Really,
what that
to be
means.
real, like, would anyone have really cared if the
No.
language
Yes.
totally didn't make
Star
sense?
Trek fans.
I'm
Yes.
proud of them for doing it. Yeah.
I
mean,
think
in
that's
Wrath of
nice.
Khan, when Spock and Savick are talking, they were just talking in English and they dubbed
Of course.
over their lines with just random Vulcan nonsense.
To match
but,
like the lip movement, right?
yeah.
Of course.
But obviously, eventually, a Vulcan language would get fleshed out as well.
Yeah, I prefer this approach.
Yeah. But next question. Gene Roddenberry was
I don't
allowed
wanna
on
cover my
set
face.
in an executive consultant role. True or false?
Ooh, this one I don't know. I'm ready.
Ready.
It's Trixie. 3, 2, 1, reveal.
True.
False.
True
I'm
or
guessing.
false? That was false.
Oh, I got it again. Oh, I'm winning.
After
Losing.
having... Sorry,
I didn't even
Colin.
need my free point.
We know that that's what he was promoted to, but wow, to
Yes.
never be invited to basically
Well,
be like, and if you
essentially-
show up to this set, I'll kill you, Gene Roddenberry.
Because of the issues they had with Wrath of Khan, where he's trying to interfere constantly,
yeah.
Mhm.
Paramount effectively barred him from the set on this one.
Oh, wow.
Interesting that Roddenberry, the creator of Trek, eventually they're like, sorry, man, like, we're moving past you, baby.
Pause on that quiz because I did have a question that sort of is relationship based like that. What do you guys think it was like between Nimoy and Shatner at this point? Because to take direction from him, do you think it's degrading that you're like, fuck this guy? Or do you think Nimoy's approach was more like, I don't even really have to tell you what to do. We've done this for years together. Do that thing.
Right. That's a good question. I'm not sure what their relationship was like. I know Shatner did have a lot of
Him and George Takei at this
with
point,
different- yeah,
not
George
even
Takei,
communicating.
as
yeah.
well
Really?
as James Doohan
Yeah.
didn't always get along super
Which is
well.
to pick a fight with Scotty is the crazy. It's
Yeah.
like what? It's like picking a fight with the dog. It's like he's not doing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
James
yeah.
Doohan had a quote that he's like, I like Captain Kirk. Don't like Bill so much.
I hate the guy who
Wow.
plays him. Yeah.
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 And obviously George Takei and him did not get along very well at this point.
Yeah.
The biggest feud, those two. They just
Yes.
would never come back
It
together.
lasted many years. Eventually, I think they reconciled when they had the roast of William Shatner where he came on. But even after that, I guess they were contentious.
Still.
And still are to this day.
Yeah.
So
Well, looking at the way this movie is, like, it definitely, Nimoy's definitely giving more to, the other crew members besides Kirk, but that doesn't mean he's not giving Kirk anything. Like, Kirk still has a lot to chew on,
Yeah.
I think, with the
And
fighting.
he's not giving
and
himself anything, Mike.
And he's not giving
no,
himself
he's
anything.
barely
Yeah.
in this movie as himself. But a big
So
problem
I think it's
Shatner
probably
had
fine.
is that, the problem that a lot of the crew had with Shatner was that he had just such a big ego.
Yeah.
And he would always wanted the best lines. He would actually take lines from other people if he thought they were too good. He would take Nimoy's lines because he's like, Nimoy's so much popular than me. Like, I hate that. Like, give
I
me
want
all
a
the
better
good
line.
lines. Yeah.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully,
you
this one
know
seems like it
when
has
you-
the highest chance of going smoothly because he's not directing himself. You know,
Yes.
like if
You can
Spock was
just
more
step
featured,
away.
now there's
Yeah.
going to be beef.
I think he would lose his mind about that. You're right,
Mm-hmm.
Mike. But it's so interesting from a screenwriting standpoint, and I'll let this go and we can finish. But just to go like, I'm making this movie. I have to make it with the 5 most recognizable people for this franchise. I have to hope they all want to be involved. And I'm not positive what their level of involvement is going to be based on what the studio's negotiating. So let me try to create something that encapsulates that.
Right.
Yeah.
And the whole reason Shatner even directed the 5th movie was because they had the way him and Nimoy's contracts work is that basically whatever Nimoy got, Shatner was also entitled to. So after doing 2 movies,
Same pay scale
Shatner was
and
like,
same opportunity.
yeah, he's like, you know what, it's my turn.
And he's
Oh,
directed
geez.
like 5 TJ Hookers at that point, Jacob. And he's literally coming to Paramount being like, they said I did a great job on those. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Because no one wants to talk to you face to face because
No,
you're
nobody
terrible.
wants to deal with you.
Right.
Right.
But you did great,
But
Will.
we'll get to Final Frontier.
We'll
That'll
get
be-
there.
yeah,
We'll
something
get
to
there.
talk about.
For now, we have a
Uh,
couple final questions, yes?
Yeah. Next question here.
All right,
Young
back
Spock
in it.
was voiced by Frank Welker. True or false?
Oh, man. I'm
This is an
guessing.
interesting one. Yeah, 3,
Okay,
2,
I'm ready.
1.
Total guess.
Reveal.
False.
That was true.
Oh,
Good job, Colin. You got one. Frank Welker, when he's like kind of
Megatron. You hear him say that line. So
Mhm.
that's why it makes
and that's why it's so
I'll
interesting
kill
because
you.
in Transformers the movie, which Normies we talked about, go back and listen to that episode.
3 years after this, he's
Galvatron
going to
and
play
Megatron.
Galvatron, Jacob.
Yeah.
You're so right.
Wow.
That's crazy.
So
And can I say one more thing? It's
Yeah.
interesting when you look at his Wikipedia. So he played Sentinel Prime in one of those live action ones we talked about, which
yes,
I saw 2 seconds of Dark of the Moon the other day. It was like I'd never even heard of the movie. So Normies, we could
Give
watch
me your
all of those
face.
again. No, you don't remember a single line.
Mm-mm.
Did you guys know this Spock, technically the Spock he's playing in this movie, per Alpha Memory, which is the Wikipedia for
Memory
Star
Alpha, yep,
Trek,
yep.
is called Prime Spock because he's the one who crosses over the timeline.
yes. So
Yeah,
Welker
he
would
crosses
be,
over to the Kelvinverse.
It's just Spock,
Kelvin Spock,
or I
yeah.
guess Kelvin Spock, but Prime Spock is the name of. You have Captain Kirk, you have Bones,
This
you
is
have
the Prime universe. so
Prime
everyone's
Spock.
Prime.
That's
Right.
crazy though.
And once we get to the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, we'll see old Leonard Nimoy. You
He
know,
never
trapped on that
stops.
ice
It's the
planet or
best.
whatever.
Yeah, and
we,
there's
we
a
did a movie where he was dead and he never stopped.
he
That's
never
incredible.
stopped. He came back. Yeah,
Yeah.
we found him.
All right, next question. Got just a couple more of these.
All right.
Kirstie Alley turned down the role to the offer to reprise the role as Saavik. True or false?
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
False.
It is true. It was
Oh.
true.
I'm catching
She
up,
was
Mike.
offered the role, but basically because they didn't
You are
have
catching up.
contracts like they do now, where Chris Evans signs on to do
No.
5 pictures
Like I was
as
saying.
Captain America, right? So when she signed on for Wrath of Khan, it was for 1 movie. So they didn't have. So they basically had to renegotiate her contract. They offered her to do this movie. She upped her salary by a
Not
lot
doing that.
because number one, she wanted to
Ah.
avoid being typecast, and she's like, you know, obviously Cheers and everything. So she's like, I'm worth this much, and Paramount was immediately like, oh, that's way too much. We're gonna recast you.
So did
so they
she
passed
turn
on
it
her.
down, or did they turn her down, Jacob? This is an important distinction.
Okay, so she,
Oh my
she
God.
you're right, I guess.
How dare
Oh,
she
he
didn't
said I'm
turn
right.
it
I'm taking your
down
point
in
away.
the
No, no.
sense that-
Scratch it,
but
scratch
she
it.
offered such an unrealistic amount of.
She was
her
not
salary that she
interested.
knew
No,
they
it
were
was
gonna-
never.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's
Basically, she priced herself out on purpose.
right, on
She's
purpose.
like, if
It's
you wanna
4 to
pay me
3
this
right
much,
now,
I'll do it,
Colin.
but
I'm
otherwise,
scared.
I'm not going. Yeah.
Got it.
Next question.
All right.
President Ronald Reagan loved this movie. True or false?
God, I don't
Did
know.
Ronald Reagan? This is the biggest curveball.
It's like, I'll be honest with you, I couldn't care less.
All right, I'm ready.
I'm ready.
3, 2, 1. Reveal.
True.
True? I'm with you.
False.
Okay, well,
Watch this
no,
movie.
no damage.
Look, man, I gotta fill out these
You
quizzes.
just made this up.
No,
this
no.
was on the trivia when
I
I'm,
need the
looking
answer.
up trivia for this movie, but he viewed it in Camp David in 1984 when it came out, and apparently he did not like it. Nevertheless, he would watch Voyage Home in '86, and then he would visit the set of TNG in '91.
Well, this
Wow.
was all reported on.
Ronald
I
Reagan.
guess so. Ronald Reagan.
Hey, what does
Ooh.
old Ronnie think of the Vulcans?
Yeah. Apparently,
Um,
he's not too into logic. That tracks.
So
All
this is the last
emotion for old
question,
Ronnie.
and I might
Last
have said
question.
It already,
Ronnie Reagan, riddled with
Ronnie
dementia,
Reagan.
has to fucking watch. Has to fucking watch a ghoul get jerked off by another space alien.
Well, think
and
about it.
people are like,
Him and
"Did
Shatner
you
probably
like that?"
knew each other from back in the day, right?
True.
That's so true.
He's like, I'm gonna support my
shocked he
friend
didn't
Bill
do a Star
Shatner.
Trek.
Yeah.
Jeez, oh man.
All right, last
Wow.
question. So what's the score? 4-3.
It's 4-3 right now.
Wow.
Who has 4?
I have 4. Colin
Wow.
has 3, so it's possible to get a
This last
tiebreaker.
one's worth 7, right?
Yeah. 7 of 9.
So last question. This was Dame Judith Anderson's final film role. True or false?
You
Oh
told
my
us
God,
this.
you told us
Did I-
this.
Did I
You
tell you it was
did.
the final role though?
Yeah,
Yes.
couple months
Well,
later she died.
There's only so many trivia that I can say about this
I'm
movie.
gonna say
I'm
true.
Gonna say true.
It was true. She was
All
Mike,
right.
say
87,
false.
came out of a
Actually, yeah, I
14
say
year
false.
retirement
You got to
to
find a
play
tiebreaker.
High Priestess.
The
Talar.
High Vulcan Priestess. I'm just now realizing that this character on Futurama is obviously a parody of her.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
watch the Star Trek episode from Futurama where all the movie people.
Oh, it's
cross
great
over.
when they're
Walter Koenig. It's the
their heads
best.
in jars.
Yeah.
He's like,
Oh, yeah.
say the thing, nuclear vessels, blah blah blah.
That's right. He does say that.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. That's
Well, I've
maybe
done
my
it.
favorite Walter Koenig performance. Congratulations.
I'll
bud.
say
Thank
Mike
you.
won because he was up 4-3 anyways, so
That's
that
right.
last one doesn't count. This is why I have to bake in as many questions to this quiz because there's only so many facts.
We just
about
talk.
a movie,
Yeah, we're
right?
talking
We just
Trek.
talked about for now.
Yeah. We just talk about
So,
whatever, and
bound
sometimes
to
we answer
mention
the
some of them.
questions before they come. Yeah.
That's okay though.
So we're winding it down. We're
Yeah.
wrapping it up here.
That's
we're
right.
giving our
Wrapping it
final
up.
thoughts. We have so many more of these that we are
Yeah.
going to continue talking Trek. We hope you're enjoying
I
it
love
as
it.
well. We shouted it out. I said, again, Normies, if you're not watching the new stuff, the vibes that we're getting off of these movies, we've all agreed it's closest to in this new show, Strange New Worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't recommend it more.
Yeah,
I had
absolutely
such
love
a
it.
bad time watching this on Paramount Plus too. I tried to rewind at one point and it completely shut the entire app down.
Here's my beef with Paramount
That's
Plus.
incredible.
Yeah.
They do not show you how much time is remaining when you pause.
No,
It's the most,
it becomes a smaller window when you pause. Mike.
man, it's
Yes.
so infuriating.
Yes. In the
It's hard to
browser.
find the
Like-
show and
it's like
episode. I hate
astounding.
it.
I know we say this
It's
every
really
time.
bad.
It's astounding.
And
The
I've been using
PlayStation
Paramount
menu
Plus
is
so
better.
much.
That's a
Yes.
terrible menu.
I've been in such a Trek mindset lately that I've just been watching all the different shows. Like while I work, I'm blazing through Enterprise, which is like the last show that I hadn't really seen yet.
Mhm.
I've just been in such a good Trek mindset, but that means I have to watch a lot of Paramount Plus and have a lot of issues with that.
And be
App,
frustrated
yeah.
constantly.
Paramount Minus,
Um, But I'm having really a lot of fun doing this series. This is my favorite episode every month to talk
yes.
about. So
Mhm.
Same.
excited for more of these. But where would you rank this so far? So I've seen all 6. I'll just go ahead and say
I only have 3 to rank.
Yeah.
yeah, this is my 4th favorite out of the 6 original movies. It's the best odd numbered one, but it's it's the worst good one or the best bad one. It's right in the middle for me.
Gotcha.
I go Wrath of Khan, Undiscovered Country, Voyage Home, then this one, then Motion Picture, then Final Frontier last.
Interesting.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, definitely Khan is better. It has more pathos, and then this is next, and then motion picture, because the motion picture was just a botched pilot that they retconned in Wrath of Khan and just said, what if we do the same thing again but better? So
Yes.
But
yeah,
Mike,
motion
the
picture.
jumpsuits, you're forgetting the jumpsuits.
But we got really good
Of
helmets
course,
in
we'll
this
have
one.
to- yeah, we'll
Those
rank
security
these all when we get
officers.
to the end. I think
Yeah.
once we finish the 6, we can rank the 6.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Go
Yeah,
from there.
I think that's what we'll have to do. Yeah, I don't know. I've letterboxed them, Jacob, just from past viewings. But
Yeah.
I think when we're done, they will be different than how they are now. Right now, I'm super hot on this, where it's like 2, 3, 1. Obviously, that's not like so
as far as
scandalous.
we can go.
Right.
Some days when I'm in a really upbeat mood, I like this upbeat movie more than 2. So I don't know. I think you could catch me on a good day with this one, and I hope it stays up there at the end.
Well, I'm definitely
Yeah,
excited
yeah.
for next month because I think
The next one's my favorite one, though.
Voyage Home and this one, it'll be interesting to see which one you guys prefer. If Joe can make it to that episode, I'll be interested to see his opinion. He wasn't a huge fan of Wrath of Khan.
No.
He probably didn't like this movie, if I had to guess.
I'd say probably not. No.
Mhm.
But I think he might
Now,
like
Mike,
Voyage Home just because the.
Have you
comedic aspect.
seen Voyage Home to set up our?
Yeah,
viewers for
I've
next
seen
one? You
all
have.
of them at least a minimum
At
of one
least
time.
one
Yeah,
Okay.
a couple of the Next Generation ones I've seen more than once, but not
Yeah.
Well,
none
that's
more
so
than thrice.
opposite to me. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I had seen all the TNG
Star Trek is on
ones
TV
before,
for me in my heart. You know,
Yeah,
the
that's
movies are
right.
secondary to me.
It really is.
Absolutely.
I agree with that.
So it's fun to
Um,
re-explore this side of Trek that I'm not as familiar with. That's why I'm enjoying this
Well, it's interesting
monthly
because
kind of thing.
TNG, it's more of a TV thing, but the original series. When I think of that, do I think of the original show with them wearing the yellow?
I think
shirts?
of these.
Ah.
I think of
this,
these
yeah.
movies.
You
Yeah.
know
I
what?
think of these movies.
I think you're right. Yeah, like Wrath of Khan is like the definitive
the
original
red
series, and this,
collared
yeah,
jackets and
the
everything.
naval
like
stuff that
Yeah.
drove a sex pervert
Yeah.
mad.
right, and got him
Yeah.
kicked off the set.
drove a sex pervert
For
who tried to
the betterment
destroy
of the
thing he
series.
Right.
created.
Well, that's
Right.
what's interesting is they remove Roddenberry from the equation, but he's still super involved in the creation of TNG. But even that,
And we're getting close to TNG time. Like
Yes.
the
Yeah.
show will be coming about soon, guys. That's
Yes.
really blowing my mind.
Couple
but
years
the
away.
way Roddenberry's rules really restricted, and that's why the early seasons of TNG are so bad in comparison because he basically was like, you know what, none of the crew can have interpersonal conflicts at all because this is a utopia.
They all get
everyone works
along.
together. Yeah,
Should be best
the writers on
friends,
TNG
everyone.
are like, you're like handicapped. Like, how can we write good TV when the
no
characters
drama.
can't have interpersonal conflict?
Then they all shook hands and told
Yeah.
each other, "Great job."
So he had certain ideas
What?
about what the future would be like, and he was an idealist, I would say. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah,
See how
we'll
it
get
goes.
to that in the future. But overall, I think I enjoyed the search for Spock a fair amount and a rewatch here. I'm a little bummed out again by the lack of emotional weight given David's death. Like the ship is a bigger loss than David, and I think he should have been a bigger deal as a character. Like that's a major scientific discovery. That's all.
He's
it's
really
heartbreaking.
just a
But it's a
means
nitpick.
for
Yeah.
Kirk to have some kind of emotional, pathos in other movies.
He was a
right?
character in
Leonard,
Wrath
if
of
my
Khan, and
son
this he's a
died-
prop. Exactly.
Yeah.
He's just
Yeah.
something for him
Big
to react
scene,
to.
don't you think? And you're like, yes, it would be
Right.
William. Yes, Bill.
What if he's
You
not
like that
only
scene when
heartbroken
he
about the
finds
ship,
out
but also his son,
falls
Leonard?
back and he
Can my
falls
son
off the
also
chair.
die? Leonard, can you kill my son, please,
I
Leonard?
do like that?
Yeah, who knows?
Um,
But yeah,
But that search for Spock, I say
It's incredible.
Hit the old voyage out of here, voyage home to our.
Well, I'm gonna get into this torpedo pod. If you guys can go ahead and just shoot me down to this planet here, and we can just say goodbye.
yeah.
I just hope I'm not too accurate, or Jacob will shoot me.
Mike, I told you it's so hard. to
Too
work
good
on
at your
this
job. Fuck off.
Lucky
It's what
shot.
you deserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Check us out at normies_like_us on all our socials. Hit us up, rate, review, subscribe. That really helps us out. Leave a comment. Say how your journey with Star Trek is going. We very truly want to hear that. I'd be very curious to hear from first-time watchers of these films or from
Yeah.
people who love them.
Yeah, if you're watching along, I think it's if you never got into the original series movies, I think this is a great chance to kind of just get on that old Paramount Plus, check them out.
Yeah. Good luck navigating the app, but if you can get them started, they're worth it. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need a transwarp drive to.
You got a dry
Paramount
jacket
Plus
to
to
get it
Transwarp
going.
Drive, we didn't mention that too much.
It
but
but it breaks the lore, is what I heard. Right?
it's something they don't really mention again because it's like, well, in this era, they can only go to like warp 7 or something, right?
Yeah.
Eventually, they get to warp 9.7 in the
Okay.
TNG
It's like the
era.
theoretical
What does that
maximum.
Yeah,
Cool.
Yeah,
the maximum is
faster.
like 9.9. Like getting to warp 10 is theoretically impossible. On Enterprise, in the Enterprise era, they can only 5. But anyways, transwarp, it's not
You
really a
get
concept
character
that's ever
actor
brought up.
Miguel Ferrer saying activating transwarp drive. It's pretty
Yeah.
fascinating. Watch
Yeah.
it just for that, normies.
It's black holes,
That's
maybe.
right.
Who knows? But for now, we're gonna fall
Probably.
into the black hole that is the end of the episode, and cease to exist until next week when we'll be back for actually. We'll see what we're gonna do, but it's our 200th episode.
It's our Mike. I was gonna say
that's pretty crazy. I didn't want to. Yeah,
Big deal.
Probably a
200.
big something. So get ready for that one. But
Big love
yeah,
fest,
we've been your hosts. This is Admiral Colin.
Dr. Mike Coy.
And this is Young Jock. I'm gonna need you to dry jack.
Oh my God, he's so
Oh,
horny.
God, I'm
you can
getting
see it.
hot.
He's so logically horny.
Oh, the Pon Far. All right, I'm gonna get Pon Far away from here. Thanks, normies. We'll catch you next time.
Normies.
Bye.
Live long and prosper.
Bye. Live long and Pon Far.